One of the best things for me about Fantasy Premier League is finding players that may be midfielders, but they're playing up front. They may be defenders, or they're playing in midfield, or whatever. Not so much goalkeepers playing out of position, but that is our focus this week. Out of position players. Remember last season with Stuart Dallas, he was a defender and he got clean sheet points when Leeds kept them, but he got plenty of assists and goals as well. So these for me are the gems in Fantasy Premier League. So I've drawn up a top five, and rather than kind of do some dramatic, let's go 5-1, look, there's a full screen with all five on it. Let's start at number one, and why Diogo Jota is number one. There's so many reasons behind this. One, he's playing through the middle for one of the best teams in the league that score lots of goals. There doesn't really need to be a number two, but here is number two. Mohamed Salah and Sadio Mane will be off to the African Cup of Nations in January. So it's likely, probably, to be Jota who'll be nailed on, with maybe Origi on one side and maybe Minamino on the other. Or maybe that front three will kind of interchange. But Jota will be part of it. So there's short-term thinking here. There's long-term thinking here as well. And of course, you've got the return of Roberto Firmino. So he will start when he is available. But Jota will be in there. So he is my number one. Now, this is where it becomes difficult. Some people will already have three Liverpool players without having Diogo Jota. That is when it becomes complicated. It's up to you. You'll have Trent Alexander-Arnold likely. You're probably going to have Mohamed Salah. But if you've got like an Andy Robertson or maybe an Alisson in goal, it makes things slightly tougher to get Diogo Jota. But if you can save those transfers, I would get him in. I think he is a must in Fantasy Premier League. Now, number two on the list of the top five out of position players, for me, is someone that's really under the radar, so lowly owned, and it might be a bit of a trap, but I think it's a gamble that's worth taking. Ralf Rangnick has come in at Manchester United, and in 31 of the 34 games he had in charge of RB Leipzig the last time that he was manager, he played with two strikers. What did he do in his first game for Manchester United? He went with two strikers, Cristiano Ronaldo and Marcus Rashford. This is the one that I think could be not so much a league winner if it works, but this could be someone who's going to shoot up in both value and ownership if it goes right. There are a few caveats with this, though. Marcus Rashford was okay in that game at the weekend. You've got the returning Edinson Cavani over the next few weeks. There are other players that can play as a second striker or as a front man alongside Cristiano Ronaldo. I know a lot of people have brought in Cristiano Ronaldo this week, and I think that's a good move. His price has already gone up. But this isn't about best players in the game. This is about out-of-position players in the game. And if Marcus Rashford can get a goal or two, he is a midfielder who is playing up front for Man United with the run of fixtures they have got coming up. I think that is manna from heaven. If it works. If it doesn't, don't blame me. And if it doesn't, my name is Craig Burley and not Mark Donaldson. Okay, number three, Phil Foden, Manchester City. Again, a midfielder playing in an advanced role for one of the best teams in the league. What is not to like about this? You could argue that Bernardo Silva could be in here as well. Either or. I don't mind. I think both are good options. I just think you have your core players. You have your Salahs and you have your others that most people have got. I don't have a problem with that. You're not kind of being a sheep. You're not going with the crowd because these are your differentials, your Marcus Rashfords, your Phil Fodens, your Bernardo Silvas. So take a good look at Phil Foden. Yes, there will be rotation. Yes, Pep Guardiola lottery is a nightmare. And you anxiously, an hour before kickoff, look at his team sheet and you think, is my boy going to be playing today? Well, that's the gamble that you take. But I think you get well rewarded for that gamble when your player does well. So Phil Foden's in at number three, or Bernardo Silva. I don't mind as your Man City representative there. Number four, Max Cornet is someone with the injury last week that might put a few people off. He is a good option. He's out of position. He's a midfielder. He's playing up top for Burnley. He's a super player. He plays for the Ivory Coast national side and starts for them. He has an eye for goal. We've seen that recently. And I think he's an excellent option at just over 6 million. Keep tabs on the team news for Burnley with the games coming up, because he did hurt himself in the first half last week, but if he is available, I think he is a great option. He's my number 4 player in our out-of-position top 5. At number 5, there were many more that I could have put in. Tariq Lamptey, who's playing further forward for Brighton. Canos at Brentford, a midfielder who's playing through the middle as a striker. But I'm going to go with Jarrod Bowen. Now, Jarrod Bowen, if he's playing as a 4-2-3-1, as one of the 3 in behind Mikel Antonio, isn't really out of position. But West Ham have got defensive issues. It may force them to go to a back 3. If it does, and it means a 3-5-2, there's a strong likelihood it'll be Mikel Antonio alongside Jarrod Bowen in attack. Now, Jarrod Bowen's returns in Fantasy Premier League have been frightening over the last couple of months. There's only a couple of games in which he's actually blanked. So I love Jarrod Bowen as a signing, regardless if he's out of position or not. However, if West Ham go 3-5-2 and Bowen is chosen to play alongside Mikel Antonio, you could even double up on a forward and a midfielder playing out of position. That's something to keep tabs on. Out of position players in Fantasy Premier League will get you more points than maybe you expect.
Well, thank you very much for watching ESPN on YouTube. For more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for live streaming, premium content, and let's not forget as well, ESPN FC 7 days a week. Subscribe to ESPN Plus.